Call to order the City of Prescott Planning Commission meeting. It's Wednesday, September 11th. It is 6 o'clock. Do a roll call. Josh?
Yep, here.
Bailey?
Here.
Kate?
Here.
Mike?
Here.
And the mayor and Steve are excused. All right, first on the agenda is Planning Commission minutes from April 1st.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second to approve the Planning Commission minutes from April 1st. Any discussion on that motion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next, we have a public hearing for tax incremental district number 6. Need a-
We'll turn it over.
Okay, turn it over to Sean first.
Yes.
All right.
Yep, if you want to just push the next
Matt's gonna have the presentation, I'm gonna go over up on the screen, but if anyone likes a hard copy, I do have extras up here, so just let me know if you prefer that. Just enter? Yep, perfect, thank you. Thanks, Matt. So for those of you that I have not met before, I'm Sean Lentz with Ellers. We're the municipal financial advisor for the city. And in that role, one thing that we've assisted the city in the past is creation and sometimes amendments of tax increment districts. So what we're going to talk about tonight is the proposed creation of TID number 6. We've been working with Matt and with city staff on this document, which I think you got electronically, which is the full draft project plan for the creation of TID 6. Rather than go through all of this, we found an effective way to kind of communicate the big picture. Executive summary is to do it in a PowerPoint, but if you've had a chance to look at the report, of course, feel free to answer or ask any questions about that as well, the full document. So go forward here. So tax increment financing is a tool that Prescott has used very effectively in the past, and it's a tool that allows you to look at an area in the community, either one that you want to see developed or redeveloped, and the challenge with that sort of situation is usually how do we get dollars to that site to achieve the goal of promoting development or redevelopment there? How can we do that? And tax increment financing is really the primary tool that we see communities using to achieve those kind of goals. So the next slide is, how does it work? Now, we'll get to the actual map that we're discussing for TID 6 here in a second, but in the process of creating a TID, one of the first things and first steps, worked with Beth on this, is you look at the area of the community and you have to pick connected parcels. They have to be connectivity. They can't be various spots around the city. So it's got to be connected. And then we also look at, once we've kind of determined where a good map for a potential development area is, or redevelopment area, we have to look at what's the current taxable value of that area. That, for tax increment language, is called the base value. And currently, the base value is either in an existing district, which is some of the property we're talking about today, or could be property that is not in an existing tax increment district and is currently being taxed by all the taxing jurisdictions. A portion goes to the city, the county, the school district, and the tech college off the current value. What's unique when you create a tax increment district is that value gets frozen, and any new value that's created up and above that base value, instead of the tax revenue from that increase in value, which we call captured increment, shown in purple on the chart up there, instead of that value, the taxes on that new value going to each of the taxing jurisdictions, while the TIF is in place, that tax revenue is the source that the city is using to typically repay infrastructure improvements that you engage in to try to promote new development in a particular area in the city.
Did you say TIF or TID?
I'm sorry, I use them interchangeably, but
They're
the same.
Okay.
Yeah, TIF, if you really want to get into the minutia, the TIF is the tool under the statute. TID is the district itself, but
Okay.
people use them interchangeably
Okay.
all the time. They do mean the same thing. Okay. And long-term with the tax increment district, once the project costs are paid back with revenues created from the new value generated in this site, once they're paid back, street, sewer, water, incentives, whatever it might be, then that new value, which wasn't there before the TID was created, that value shifts back and now becomes part of the general tax base for the city, the county, the school district, and the tech
Can you
college.
explain how that impacts property owners here in terms of their tax money?
Yep.
What they pay?
No, absolutely. So the other key, and I'll just, before getting to Bailey's question, the other key with tax increment is what's called the but-for test. And I think this is a good segue into your question. But for using tax increment financing, but for capturing that tax base and using it to pay back infrastructure costs or incentive costs, the development itself or the redevelopment itself is not likely to occur or maybe not going to occur at all. So because that is the case and the value, and this is a finding that the Plan Commission and a finding that the City Council make and a finding that the Joint Review Board made up of the other taxing jurisdiction makes, all three of the parties make that finding. Because that is the case, that this value wouldn't be there but for the tax increment district being created, ultimately there is no impact on the taxpayers while that TIF is in existence. Now, if you're doing a TIF for a project that would happen on its own and you don't really need TIF to get that assistance, then in that instance, you're really losing tax base that could come in and be part of your general tax base for the city right away. So it's certainly a tool that you want to use with really good planning behind it and really a thoughtful process behind it. Okay. Bailey, did I cover kind of what you wanted to hit on, or was there any?
Yeah, it's just because we've tried to close them, so that's where I was just trying to give an extra explanation as to like what the impact is to those
Thank you, and
people.
why don't I jump on that point too? So
Yeah.
you have a couple districts right now, TIDS 4 and 5, which we talked about this a little bit earlier at a meeting that I had with city staff and also the Joint Review Board. Again, members of the other taxing jurisdictions who are a part of this process. You have two districts that are a couple years from closing, TIDS number 4 and 5, and when those close, probably late 2028, 29, right in there is what our current estimates are. When those districts close, and they probably got about 60 million in value, I'd say, somewhere in that range, maybe even a little bit more than that. When those districts close, that 60 million in value, which has been captured increment to pay back infrastructure and incentive costs, when that closes, 60 million comes back, will become then at that point part of the city's tax base for your general expenditures. So let's say from one year to the next, your general expenditures would be great. I know this doesn't always happen, but let's say they stay about the same. If your tax base goes up because you closed a TID, that's going to be a benefit to the taxpayers because you have a larger tax base to pay roughly the same expenses. And if you're spreading it over a larger tax base, that can result in a tax decrease because of that. Okay. Any other questions on the general? Okay. So the rest of the presentation is really more focused on the specifics of district number 6. The map up above shows the current proposed boundaries of TID 6. And what it includes is a couple current buildings, UNFI, Foley, and Matt, help me again. I always want to say diversified. It's SVF. One of these times I'll get it. Yeah. Those three buildings are in tax increment district number 5, but there's discussions about expansion, and because TID 5 is out of its expenditure period, meaning we can't do new projects with TID 5, overlaying TID number 5 with TID number 6 will allow the city the option, if you want to potentially assist with development or expansion of those businesses out there, should they come forward with proposals to do so. A question that did come up earlier today, just so you know, when TID 5 closes, and it's roughly, I think, 40 plus million in value out there, when that district closes, we're estimating around 2029. The value in TID 5 doesn't go to TID 6. It'll come back to the city's general fund. The only thing that will stay in TID 6 is from the point District 6 is created forward, any new value up and above what's already out there, that would get captured into tax increment district number 6. Okay. The other proposed area for District 6 is the property that the city acquired in 2021. It's east of this current business park area for the city. And that area, I think, as the Plan Commission members will know, is undeveloped currently, does not have infrastructure. So in order to make that property developable, it's going to take significant infrastructure improvements to make that land saleable and developable to expand the tax base and provide new job creation opportunities in the city. The other thing I'll mention on the map is there's various types of tax increment districts. In talking with Matt, we've determined, we think the best fit here is what's called a mixed-use district, which really is the most flexible type of tax increment district in that the city can use it for promotion of commercial, industrial, or even residential, in some instances, development. In this case, primarily TID 6 is focused on commercial and industrial type development. Not really, I think there's much of a expectation we'd see any
Sean, we're
residential.
limited on percentages on what can go into those different segments, right?
Yeah, we are on the residential. If we were looking at residential, Mike, you're exactly right. No more than 35% of the area could be for residential, right?
Okay,
Next to a chem plant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
What did I miss?
I have a question too. So you said that if the TID 5 were to be incorporated into TID 6, right?
correct.
And then they only have 4 or 5 years left.
Mm-hmm.
So then what happens if nothing's built at this site yet? Is that a question?
Yeah, I think I'm following where you're going. So what this allows, by putting it into 6, the taxable value that's been created in TID 5 doesn't go to 6, but let's say one of the businesses comes in and says, we want to do an expansion, but we've got some challenges here on our site. We're going to need some assistance for us to justify going forward with the project. The city, currently, TID 5, we cannot do that anymore. We're outside the expenditure period, we can't do any more projects. If that sort of instance happened by putting these properties into TID 6, we could say to that business, yes, we can work on a development
Kind of like
agreement.
developer financing for them, so we basically cover it. Like, because most developers have to pay for that.
Yeah, so what we typically see, and again, this is, by putting in the TID doesn't mean you've agreed to do this, just you'll have to go the next step of doing a development agreement. But let's say they came forward and said, we've got some site improvements that are gonna be necessary for us to do an expansion here. They're kind of extraordinary costs for us, and we wanna do an expansion, but we need some assistance. What we would ask is that if we build a $5 million expansion on our current building, we would ask, as we pay taxes on that $5 million, you pay it back to us, which is called a pay-as-you-go incentive for the next, say, 5 years, up to a certain amount. And then they would justify to us site grading, which is an unusual situation, this is hypothetical, cost us $100,000 more than we thought, so we were gonna ask for an incentive of $100,000. I'm just purely an example, but that's the kind of thing, by putting those existing buildings in the new TID, the city would have the option of considering, should you want to do it.
With the current value of the 5, we should be closing that out here in another 3-4 years. Say that's at 50 million. That's gonna still close out and come to the general fund. We're only
Yep.
talking new expenditures.
Correct. We can't
That's the
use-
reason to create the 6,
Yep.
is for new expenditures.
For new expenditures, right. The bulk of the expenditures in TID 6 are not the kind I just discussed, the potential development incentives with existing buildings that might potentially expand. The bulk of the expenditures are more infrastructure to develop the site to the east, 150 acres to the east, which currently does not have street sewer, water, storm sewer improvements. So that's the bulk of the cost. But in the plan, should the city want to potentially negotiate on something like that, it's an option. But again, each project has to come before the council, and you have to make decisions on whether you think that's the best way to go forward.
So I'm sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions, but I just want to wrap my brain around it. So just so we're clear, the buildings, the 50 million
Yep.
that we have now, would be used for the next 4 years to do the infrastructure part.
No, thank you for bringing that, because I want to make sure we're clear on this. That 50 million, it's currently paying back costs related to TID number 5.
Okay,
It's not going to be used for this at all.
okay,
What we need for this one to work is we need either, I'm gonna run over here just to emphasize the point. We either need expansions on these buildings or new buildings here. That's the revenue that we would use to pay for infrastructure out here and anything else related.
And is the tax for like an expansion, that's the only thing that can be accounted for into the new TID?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, yep. No, and that was a question that the joint review board asked too, is that what's already there stays with District 5, is not a part of this at all.
Is that new? Is this something new with the TIFs that they allowed them to overlap on an existing TIF?
No, it's been available in the past. We always have to be cautious of is, I think you remember, Mike, we have those limitations of how much value we can have in the TID. So you don't have to double count it, so we only have to count it once in that particular 12% test. But I don't know that we've done it in Prescott before, but it is an option. Yep.
Not aware of that.
All right. We've already gotten into this a little bit, but just want to reemphasize, in the plan, we've got current infrastructure and other potential project costs that the city could choose to do and charge to the new TID fund, TID number 6 fund. And so what you see on the right side on the map is a very preliminary layout of streets and utilities to develop the 150 acres. There's also some broader infrastructure costs like a water tower and a well that would certainly service the area, probably will service more than just that area, but as expansion grows to this portion of Prescott moving east, you're gonna have water pressure issues and other issues, so that's included in the project plan. Costs that are in the project plan are eligible to be paid by the TIF. But again, by being in the plan just means you can use the tool to pay for them should you decide to move ahead. It doesn't obligate you to do the projects. Again, it just links it to TID 6 and allows you to do that.
I have some questions.
Sure.
Have we had people reach out to us and say, if you don't develop this, we're not moving in? Like, what opportunities have we had on this year's property? Because we're gonna go and develop all this and do all this water sewer stuff.
It's pretty standard.
Because we have 82 million that we're saying we're gonna get back from it, but it's gonna take 15 million to do it.
So I guess the pretty standard thing for any business when they're coming in is that they're saying we need infrastructure available wherever we're developing. So that is something that we've heard from the few businesses that we have heard from when they're looking for sites is what opportunities are you going to offer us to put in the water, sewer, storm, road connection.
What kind of leads
to our-
have we had on the Sears property at all, though?
Well, right now, we don't have many, because honestly, we don't have any tools to pay for anything unless we're gonna burden the taxpayers of City of Prescott to try to pay for all
Well,
these.
I mean, give or take, I mean, we either get lower taxes from closing our TIDs, or, I mean, I don't know. I'm just wondering, like, is this the right time to be doing it? And is the valuation correct at 82 million of what we expect back?
Yeah, one of the things we talked about with the joint review board, and if it's okay, I'm gonna go to, because I think it piggybacks on this. Here's the 82 million that Bailey was just referring to. So this is a projection of the revenue from the TID from new value, the 82 million, up and above the current base value out there. So this would take, some, not UNFI big, but a couple big buildings to make this happen, certainly to develop and get to that kind of a value. And the next slide, I'm just gonna go forward because these two kind of work hand in hand. The next slide on the left side is the revenues from the previous page that we just talked about. So new tax revenue from the 82 million in construction value that would hypothetically occur in TID number 6. In the middle of this chart are different expenditures, either through annual payments or through debt issues to pay for, say, the water tower and the well, and then the repayment of that debt over the life of the tax increment district. This is a very preliminary plan to match the timing of those revenues with the timing of the expenditures. And what I mentioned at the joint review board, the state law requires that you come up with a plan at the time you're creating a tax increment district. The plan has a 15-year expenditure period and a 20-year period over which you can recoup the costs and pay them back. So you have to forecast over a long period of time for the document itself. What's, to me, most important with the TIF, the plan is important, but what's most important is as projects come forward to the city, that you do an analysis every time that they come forward to ask the question, if we do these expenditures, if we put, say, $2 million worth of infrastructure out in the ground there, are we going to have enough development to pay for it? And those are the questions you want to ask every time an option or an opportunity comes forward, every time a business comes forward. Because I don't see Prescott doing this as a build it and they will come approach where you put in $2 to $4 million worth of infrastructure with no prospects of anyone coming in to develop. I see you doing this more on a basis of, okay, as options come forward, Matt talked a little bit earlier today about requests for proposals, requests for qualifications about communities and what land do they have available, what could they do for a business who's looking to maybe relocate or locate in and around Prescott. This would be the tool that then is at your disposal to put to work should options that you as a city council, you as the plan commission really want to take into consideration. That, again, just to reiterate, these project costs in there, they're there so you can use this tool, but each one of these projects you're going to want to analyze all throughout the life of the TID, because the worst thing you could do is get overextended, not have enough money coming in from the TID, which then requires you to take money from other sources of the city. So I'm a big proponent of, yep, we got the framework, but now we have to analyze each project individually as they come forward to see if it's going to make sense.
I was just curious, Matt, because we have an emergency meeting tonight, so I didn't know, do we have a cost spec that's saying like, hey, I'm interested, but I'm not gonna do anything until I get X, Y, and Z?
We have a existing company that's reaching out and saying they're considering expanding their building and
Fully?
asking. Fully, correct. So that is what started at this process, and the fact that overall, I mean, the 150 acres that we purchased in 2021 was the idea of we were expanding our business park. And if we're gonna do that, we need some sort of tools to pay for the infrastructure, and that's what we've used in the past with TID 5 and what we got UNFI, Foley, SV Labs. Now we expanded there and trying to use that same tool to now look at the 150 acres.
And we are, the other element, we are below the 12% test right now, which is the test of when you're below 12% of the increment value of all the tax increment districts you have is compared to the full equalized value of the city, you have the option of creating another district. If we go above that 12, we don't have that option. So because we are at that point, what we discussed with Matt is you have a project that is out there percolating, and you know at some point if you're going to develop the Sears property, you're likely going to want to have TIF as the tool to help you to do that. So the combination of those factors seem to make sense to put this together. We're below the 12%, we might go above it, we don't, then we can't do it. So that was all those kind of things in the mix led to the consideration.
I'm just apprehensive, just because we tried to close them. That's why, like, we've been trying to close them, so that's where I'm like, if we have additional opportunities that are coming and it makes sense, but I also hate the idea of financing developers, because I was one for a while, and anyways. I don't know. I think it's a good tool to have, obviously, but I just think with everything going on, I don't know what the consequences will end up being, because there's always a pro and a con to everything.
Yeah, in terms of closing, if I may real quick, in terms of closing the districts, I don't think this one will have any effect on 4 and 5. They're scheduled for 2028, 2029. I think that's pretty much locked in. The concern we had again was going over that 12%, maybe losing the opportunity should things come down the road. So the timing there seemed like a good idea, but just to reiterate one last time, the implementation of this tool is really going to be the key, and that's yet to be seen as actual projects come forward, not just conceptual, which is where we're really at. at this point.
Do we get anywhere with Excel going out there and doing whatever they needed to do for the Sears property? I remember they were.
Yes, so we got the site certified through Excel Energy, shovel-ready program, if that's what.
Did any leads come after that?
To this point specifically, we haven't had a lead come through Excel Energy.
Okay.
Does Foley have a timeline? Or are they like just wanting to see?
Their consideration right now would be 2025 if they move forward.
Approximate size? Square
Don't have
footage?
that.
Okay.
I guess I'm gonna just echo Bailey's. I mean, we haven't had a meeting all summer, and now this is just like, oh no, we ought to have a meeting this day, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, and maybe this will help on the other point. Today's meeting, we had the initial meeting of the Joint Review Board, and a second meeting tonight is the Plan Commission. The council, should you guys vote to move forward with this, will discuss this on September 30th. Any district that's created September 30th or earlier in 2024 will have a base value as of January 1, 2024. Any TID created on October 1st or later will have a base value of January 1st, 2025. So we know where we're at for 2024. And since we're kind of right in that period, again, to take advantage of all the flexibility, this seemed like the better timeline to go for it, even though I understand you guys are having a special meeting about this, particularly tonight. But there are advantages to being created before September 30, or on or before September 30th of this year, rather than going forward to October 1st. We wanted to take advantage of those. The other advantage is TIDs created before September 30th are under the old rules for levy limit benefits from them. TIDs created on October 1st or later under new rules which are not as beneficial.
Can you explain the why?
Your ability to capture the value growth in the TIDs to allow you more flexibility on your levy limit rules is better under the old rules than it will be under the new rules. It'll be more restrictive under the new rules. Now, you'll have, it doesn't mean you guys have total control as a council as to how much you levy, but your flexibility with growth that could occur in this new TID, it still has to occur, the growth does. You will benefit more from the growth under the old rules, the existing rules for the levy limits than what the new rules are. So all those issues together, the 12% test, the levy limit situation, the timing of the Foley project, the fact that we're currently below, again, that 12% test, all of those were in the mix to say, should we try to do it on or before September 30th or wait till later? And I think our recommendation is that if because ultimately up to you guys, you're comfortable moving ahead, there are benefits to doing it on that September 30th or earlier timeline than waiting till after that date.
When did you guys start working on this?
Well, we've talked about the Foley.
I mean, we've been talking about the 150 acres since we bought it in 2021.
Yeah, but not this specifically.
This
Yeah,
specific,
like this TID thing specifically.
I just think it's gonna be important for us to clearly tell everybody, what does that mean in terms of their property tax that they pay? If we were to not do it and we were to close 5, what could that mean for the residents of Prescott? Just, the only reason I'm bringing this up, I wanna develop that property, but if it's at the expense of like what we have going on right now,
just to be clear though, we
Yeah.
can't close 5 until it runs out in
yeah,
2030.
but now we're gonna create another one.
It's really unrelated.
But they're not affecting.
I know they're
really-
unrelated, but that tax money for all the new stuff is gonna go into there, so would it make sense to have the tax money go into the general fund?
Well, there likely won't be that tax money if we don't.
I think she's saying, you're talking about,
Yeah,
you're
long
talking
term. I'm
about
talking
like leaving
about
the 1, 2, and 3, and they're not putting on 6, and then putting those, the other big 4 that's raw land into the TIF.
Yeah, when TID 5 closes, whatever the value is right now on UNFI, Foley, and the third building, one of these days,
SV Labs.
the labs, those 3 buildings, the general fund's gonna get 100% of that. If those buildings expand and you put them into TID 6, so let's say you put in a $2 million expansion, TID 6 will get the expansion. If the expansion goes forward without the benefit of TIF, you would get it right away. But if it doesn't go forward because you're not offering any incentives, you won't get it.
So it's about offering incentives. And developing the land, like pre-developing it, so a developer
again,
is like more keen to wanting to go do it there.
It's all about the but-for test, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a metric.
I mean, it's, each project you have to look at individually about whether you as a city feel like it's worthy of assistance or not. But for using a TID, does it happen or not happen? Those are the
I mean, if
questions.
I'm not saying it's not worthy, I'm just wondering if right now is the time.
If you feel that the Sears property is going to,
We haven't,
companies will be coming, beating down our door to develop that for us.
we haven't had anybody be there, or even after the Excel thing,
Well, I think that's a good reason.
to go develop it for them and like
No?
finance it?
Yeah.
No, you let it sit undeveloped
Yeah,
until somebody
so,
comes.
yeah. So you're not gonna preemptively put in roads or anything like?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
That'd be foolish, because you don't know if it's gonna be a.
Well, I know, I
what
looked
size
at the plan, I'm
building.
like, okay, we got roads, we got lights, we got all these things on here, like, hell,
Yeah.
no.
I apologize if I wasn't clear on it. What the state law requires, we gotta put
Something on paper?
something in there, because the map, I think you'd agree, Matt, that the layout of the infrastructure, the engineers said, well, we don't know what businesses are gonna go in here, but this is what it could look like. You're gonna develop it the way the businesses who come in, whatever makes the most sense. But we had to put something in there to start the discussion.
I guess the only thing I would add is, I'm not aware of any community that doesn't use tax increment districts on both sides of the river. And if we don't have it as a tool for economic development, we're putting ourselves at a very large disadvantage moving forward. Now, that doesn't mean we should use it, because again, you guys have the ultimate decision on what you think, but we're just, compared to the competition of businesses when they're looking at sites, is ultimately, and Sean Cowan, if you're aware of any communities that have just decided we're not gonna use it, but
It's
almost
extensively
every
used.
community in the state of Wisconsin is using it.
That's the way I see it. Do we really wanna be behind all these other communities that are looking for businesses to,
Here's what I can say. There is a lot of stuff going on in the market, the commercial market specifically. You have Apple and a bunch of other people holding on to cash right now. They're holding on to cash. So there is stuff going on in the market. That's the only thing I'm kind of thinking about, like right now. They're gonna do land grabs, or building grabs at least here pretty soon, probably is what I'm expecting, for how the commercial market's going, because there's gonna be buildings up on end.
I guess that's the question. If we feel
But they're
that,
gonna be
if
grabbing
we feel that
existing.
businesses are gonna be attracted to the Sears property and they wanna pay for their own infrastructure and they don't want any incentives, then we don't need this. If we think that if we don't think that's the case and that they're gonna go elsewhere where they're gonna get incentives,
That's
we
kind
don't
of what
have
I'm
any.
saying, is that people
Well,
aren't going
They're gonna
elsewhere.
go somewhere else if there's incentives. I mean, that's like you're saying, I was looking at pickups and the one dealer's giving me half off. Well, that's where I'm gonna buy it, not the guy that wants full price. That's just a no-brainer.
And if nothing comes,
Yeah, if you don't,
in like the first however many, like, do they have a timeline on any of that stuff at all? Like, what are the ground rules? Like, if
Sure.
nothing really comes in that first however,
so if it was approved by the council on September 30th, there'd be a final meeting of the joint review board in October. They would, let's assume they approve it. The district would be created as of September 30th under the state law. That starts a 20-year life of the tax increment district. In the first 15 years of that life, if the city decides to proceed, say with some infrastructure improvements, you're able to do those projects and charge it to the new TID 6 fund. And from September 30th, 20 years later, you're able to capture the taxes on new development in that area to help pay back those costs. So if nothing happens, this is rarely the case, but if nothing ever happens with the TID, nothing happens. It's just there as a fund and really nothing's happening with it at all. But if development happens anytime in that 15 years, if you have options, you can go forward with charging those infrastructure improvements to the TID district to assist a project that you decide is worthy of tax increment assistance. So that would be the clock that starts on September 30th, is that 20-year timeline on the tax increment district in the 15 years where you can incur the costs. That would start on September 30th.
So is the big push to do it now
Fully.
is fully, and also obviously these new rules that are going into place.
And we know we're below the 12% right now.
You know,
And because before the new values came out, which was in August, we would have had to have subtracted property from other TIDs to create new, it would be a very convoluted process to do it. We're below that right now, so that's a big advantage temporarily that I don't know if this will, might be gone next year. We just don't know where the numbers will go in growth in the TIDs and growth in the city overall.
I'll give you a little history on the last TIF, on TIF 5 that happened back in, I think it was 2007, was it 7 or 8? The city, it was mixed use, and we were gonna have residential housing on the south side of the highway. And the developers were ready to break ground on that. We were gonna have a pre-construction meeting on that, if anybody remembers back in '07. As far as real estate goes, the bottom really fell out. They pulled the pin on that, and we had already put in infrastructure on the south side to the tune of about $200,000. I think we had about $189,000. In addition to that, we built some infrastructure on the north side, that sidewalk and the road, and I got accused of the sidewalk to nowhere or whatever, because everything shut down. I mean, people just weren't gonna do stuff, and so there was a leap of faith on the city's part to do this TIF and to actually build out the infrastructure for, we had to get compensated from the developer. Eventually we did when they sold the land to the high school. But the stuff on the north side just didn't happen. And it didn't happen for quite some time. And it happened to do with the real estate. You're worried about that, Bailey. We could be running into some times where that's gonna happen. It's gonna take on the part of this group and the council a little bit of a leap of faith that this is the way to do this. That but-for test, and also, the working with companies and working with CFOs that come in here and they'll say, okay, we're gonna need this from you, or we're gonna expand our operations in Cannon Falls. We had our little people, I think it was Hinckley. They had the business over here, and they were leveraging their position with plants they had in Cannon Falls and Sioux Falls before they built out here. And the guy that was the CFO there, he was really tough to deal with, because he was saying, we need stuff. Well, that was in the TIF. And we were able to offer him enough to where he expanded his operations here. Tax base went up, and it's been a good thing. Across the road, eventually UNFI got interested in it, Katax moved over in it. We got Foley, we got the other outfit. It didn't happen right away, but is it gonna be a good story once that tax goes into the general fund?
Eventually,
Yes,
yeah.
it'd have been nice if we could have closed that out in '23 or '22. It's gonna happen. I mean, it's gonna happen, and it's gonna be a good thing for the city. I realize what the council is up against with the budget and with taxes going up and failed referendums from the school, all the things that fit together on this. But my experience with the TIF was that it was a good means to attract business, because it's very competitive out there. It's very competitive. And they're gonna squeeze these businesses to come in as much as they can. This allows you some incentives for them to perhaps locate their business here. or expand their
And I'm
business.
fine if we're not putting in a road right away. Like,
Yeah.
if we're not doing infrastructure immediately, when I saw it, I was like, okay, wait a minute.
We did.
I know,
because
and
we
that's
had
where
an
I'm
agreement with the
apprehensive.
Developers, and they basically, they welched on the agreement. We had
Which
to
I understand
take
why.
it to court.
Yeah.
But what
we-
happens if they welch on the agreement again?
We
Well,
have to
you
have,
gotta
get-
we have to have a
you-
solid
You gotta
developers
get a
agreement.
good developers agreement. We did have one where we could have sued, and then when they were gonna sell the land to the school, we came in and said, wait a minute, folks, where's our $189,000, and we did get it.
From the previous
I
developer?
think we
Okay.
had land instead, yeah. But that whole thing with attracting businesses to come in over on TIF 5, we gave the land away. I mean, we paid $17.9 per acre, on that. And we basically had to give that land to the companies to bring it in. If you look at, I don't know, you threw a number out there, and I was gonna ask you about that today, Matt, that 50 million, maybe for, what TIF 5 has got for value.
Yeah, between 40 and 50
So
right
with
now.
the current mill rate, what are we bringing in on that per year?
So,
So the current increment value is $40,280,400.
So we're bringing in roughly $1.5 million on that a year, a little bit, $1.25 million maybe?
I would have to look that up.
yeah.
But then that's divided up among the different taxes, you know, between the VOTEC and county and school and us, that's divided up. That'll be a nice bump coming into the budget.
That's right.
Just, it'd be nice if it would've come in earlier, but it didn't, you know, that's the thing, so. So it takes a little bit of guts to do this, that's the thing, but it's a good way to do it. I'm a real proponent on TIFs and how they act. I think they're a good way to do the but for.
Well, it's pretty much the only way.
I mean, I don't wanna give too much.
I just know what's going on in corporate world right now, just because that's the world I'm living in, so that's the reason why I'm apprehensive. So that's, but if we're not doing infrastructure immediately, then I'm less concerned about it.
That road was there for a long time before it got driven on.
Yeah, that's, like, if we're not doing that, then I'm less panicky about it, but a lot of stuff moving to India these days.
Well, I don't know if you want to open it up to the broader
You
view.
wanna do this?
Yep. Need a motion to.
Make a motion to go into the public hearing regarding the proposed creation of the tax incremental district number 6, the proposed boundaries of the district, and the proposed project plan for the district.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second to open the public hearing for the proposed creation of TID 6, proposed boundaries of the district, and proposed project plan for TID 6. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, we're in public hearing.
Mine's for me.
Beating down the door.
Yeah.
All right, hearing no questions or comments from the public. I'll consider a motion.
Motion to come out of,
Public hearing.
public hearing?
Second?
All right, got a motion and a second from out of the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, public hearing is closed. All right, now, next, a consideration and possible action on a resolution establishing the boundaries of and approving the project plan for TID number 6, which is resolution 01-24.
Just for discussion on it, are we, how are we sitting with infrastructure issues with the city? How are we sitting with wells and the water towers? What about our wastewater treatment plant?
We
How
have another-
specific are we gonna have to be? How much are we gonna have to scrutinize these businesses to expand or to bring in new businesses as far as overloading our wastewater treatment plant? Or
I think
how are
they-
we doing on the wells?
I think it has to be no water, right?
So I
They
guess
can use lots of water, but they can't. use
To
lots of
address the
waste.
Yeah.
comment, wastewater treatment plant is the biggest limiting factor right now in terms of any businesses that expand here and how much they're going to produce. You know, if we had somebody who was coming in and using water and not producing a lot of wastewater, we can meet the well capacity in terms of our water amount that we have. However, wastewater is our biggest limiting factor, and that's one of the reasons we started looking at approving a study. We did one back in 2010. Ultimately, we didn't move forward with anything at the wastewater treatment plant, so now we're taking that plan and updating it with Cedar Corporation and looking at what our options are long-term.
Are we
So-
drilling a well out there then? When we do bring stuff in, or do we already have one out there? Do we have to do an extra one? We're doing a water tower.
So the water tower and well are both put in the plans in
Yep.
case that they are. To Sean's point, the plan is to put in what you anticipate. We don't necessarily know for sure we'll be doing a water tower and well there, but in order of us to have that option in terms of
Go
if
deep.
we got somebody who is a very large water
deep.
user and wanted to help contribute, say they had X amount of gallons of water they needed per day, and we said we can't meet that, but they said, what if we put 50% of cost to it? and we could get a new water tower and well, that's, you know, something like that.
Will we
You know,
put
scenario.
will we put a GAC system on it right away? Or like a filtration system on it right away?
I would imagine that any well we're putting in is gonna have some sort of water treatment, no matter what we do.
Perfect. Expensive, but perfect.
So I'm just wondering how much we'd be limited on prospects coming in as far as what we'd be able to look at on that. You know, how much are we gonna have to say, oh,
Sure.
you're not gonna fit our.
It's
So
no
I would
different than
say-
TID 5 the whole time.
So if we have somebody like UNFI, who's it's a large logistics user and they don't use a lot of water, we could meet that. If we have somebody like SV Labs, who's a very large water user, that would be harder to, so it's all gonna be dependent and,
But they could be a large water user, you just can't handle the large waste.
Correct.
So if they're bottling orange juice or something,
right. Yep, it's somebody who's taking that, putting in their product and then selling it, yep.
So how, Matt, as far as you doing a study on this now, as far as, you know, rejuvenating that 2010 study that we had, how far away would we be to where we'd have more capacity in our wastewater treatment plant? Best case scenario, if we were to follow through on a plan to expand our wastewater treatment plant, how far away would we be on that? You know, and we'd have to find out how to pay for it and all that, but what would you think we'd be as far as expanding our use now?
Like, what would our new capacity be?
Well, how long would it take to expand our capacity?
I think we looked at that.
I think it's,
It's been a
if we
persistent
were,
question.
if we were to go full steam ahead with everything and we were to try to go for the Clean Water Fund in order to get assistance with the lower interest rate and potentially some grant funding that would be available, we'd probably have improvements finished in 2027/2028.
Okay. Just wanted to try and coordinate all this, you know, if it's, it would definitely open things up for us as far as what we could.
But Cedar, I thought
For-
they said we could potentially stay within our same footprint, but upgrade the equipment.
So that's one of the,
Yeah.
that's what the plan's looking at, is how much it's gonna cost to stay within our same footprint and upgrade and use better technology.
Yeah.
Or if we, you know, go to a different site, what are those costs gonna be, what are options?
So if we can stay in the same footprint and just update equipment, that might be ideal. But
Yes.
pretty much it's gonna be like distribution or,
Yeah, and I'm not an expert, I know, so basically one of the things they're talking about, there's equipment in there that has much smaller footprint that allows you to get to a much higher capacity. It's just, then you're paying a lot more cost for that equipment because it is higher technology.
So on the well side, on the wastewater treatment plant side, depending on what we get in there, of course, we'd have to work it with our fire. I'm just wondering on how the infrastructure, on how, if we're limited on any other things, if anything's gonna bottleneck us going down the road on that.
In terms of utilities, wastewater treatment plant is the,
that's the big one, because
Big one.
it really limits who's gonna be willing to come in, because if they have a high number of employees, too, like depending on what it is, how much waste.
Grant money, has
we're
that
not worried
been, has
about
that
doing
been,
bathroom.
I am.
You're
Has
worried
that been pretty
about,
good? Pretty good thing to
Wastewater.
check into
Yeah.
right now?
We, yeah,
Like a
we do.
dairy?
We do our
grant
own
money in terms of
treatment.
economic
Yeah.
development.
Can-
We used grant money for the SV Labs to help with some of the infrastructure there through the transportation economic assistance through the DOT, which we're actually to the point now where we have to do final paperwork for that, so there's assistance out there for some of that stuff. I don't know how much still exists because we haven't used it recently.
Oh, I guess there's a lot of competition for grant money for wastewater treatment plant build out, huh? With the increase in.
There's a
state still
lot of
has the-
infrastructure stuff going on right now.
The state still has some of the money comes from the federal government too, the Clean Water Fund
Right.
program, so the
Right.
subsidized interest rate, you still gotta pay the cost, and sometimes they have what's called principal forgiveness in those loans, but it's case by case as to whether you qualify, and then it's the point you guys are making, there's competition too, around the state.
And there's a lot of areas that are probably worse off than we are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This group, and then the council for sure, if you're gonna relive what we went through with some of the things that happened when we did the TIF 5 and TIF 4 actually, you'll hear a lot of falsehoods out there as far as what TIFs are and that you're giving away and they'll never have to pay taxes on it and all this stuff, you know, so just just so you know what you'll be up against. A lot of people don't, they don't take in what the basics of the TIF are. You know, they just hear a rumor here and they'll give you a hard time on it, just so you know it. Not so much here, but probably the council level, so.
Any other thoughts, questions?
Don't put infrastructure in unless there's like a guarantee. Like somebody coming in and a solid developers agreement, that would be my one ask, but it'll come to us anyways. I guess I'll make a motion to approve. Since we're not putting in anything right away.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion and a second to approve resolution 01-24, establishing the boundaries of and approving the project plan for tax incremental district number 6. Any other discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right,
you.
moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
See you guys on the 30th.
Yep.
Appreciate it, Sean. Next on the
Take care,
agenda,
Sean. Good seeing you, bud.
we've got Erickson subdivision concept review. You got that, Carter?
All right, yes, thanks, John. So background on this, Douglas Erickson is proposing a 9-lot subdivision at the corner of Walnut and Dexter Street. The subdivision is zoned R1, intended for single-family homes. It includes lots ranging from 1 to 5 acres. Chapter 510-9 requires that the Plan Commission must have a consultation with the subdivider before the preliminary plat, and this can serve as that consultation. Just so I can use my cursor here. The subdivision layout, there is a 600-foot street ending in a cul-de-sac. That's due to the topography and the property boundaries. That meets our maximum length requirement for streets. There's expected to be trail access to Dexter and Walnut Street, connecting to McGee Park, and the southern parcel would contain a stormwater pond as well. Sanitary and water service utilities will extend from Walnut and Dexter Street. Homes will be required to have a private sewage pump. This is also called a grinder pump to the force main. Our city engineer Greg Adams has confirmed that this method is viable. That's just due to the topography of the street, and some homes might be lower than the peak point of the main, so that pumping is necessary for the sanitary. We will require that property owners sign a maintenance agreement for the grinder pumps, and that will be included in the development agreement. Water service, however, is expected to be adequate. For stormwater management, stormwater pond will be located on the donated southern parcel. We will require that it gets parceled out separately from the rest of it, just so it's not encumbered for potential grants for trails and whatnot. It allows for future flexibility there. The developer is seeking assistance with stormwater system development. That's due to the excess runoff from the city street at the Dexter Walnut Street elbow. It's caused quite some land degradation because of that up there. Regarding trail development, Mr. Erickson is donating about 25 acres of the southern parcel for the trails that will connect to Walnut and Dexter Street. This trail will link McGee Park up to Walnut Dexter and connect to the city's proposed trail and sidewalks networks that's outlined in our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan that I believe is linked in your guys' packets online. It's on page 27. We will require a developer's agreement if the subdivision proceeds. The developer is requesting utility assistance due to the land dedication. The typical required land dedication for a subdivision of this size would be 1.7 acres, but Mr. Erickson is donating approximately 25 acres for trails. The details about what assistance we give will be negotiated in the development agreement and included in the final plat. So since this is just a concept review, you guys can provide general feedback to us or the developers. There's Doug Erickson and Louis Filkins are here. But detailed items will be reviewed further along the line if there's a preliminary and final plat. So any comments and questions, we can take those, and if you'd like to hear from them, they can come up as well.
You okay with people walking up there, taking a look at that? You're not gonna throw us off if we go out?
Yeah, do we go out to the property, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've got it mowed, you can go up there.
Are you dealing with any elevation changes on that? I'm trying to see the contours here. I don't know.
Well, in Carter, so I'm Louis Filkins, Ogden Engineering. We're helping Doug Erickson, the owner, with the, excuse me, the project a little bit.
Sorry, Louis, to cut you off, because I know I'm gonna get the stink eye from Larry about people not talking to the microphone. If you
Yes.
could come up here.
Yes, I'll come up.
Thanks.
So I have a laser pointer. I'm not sure if you want me to use that in here. Oh, you have this right here. That'll work great. Okay. So I think in Carter's staff report, he said steep. You know, we like to say topographically challenged. When I first met with Doug, we looked at the property, and I was somewhat familiar with it from working on Great Rivers to the south and east of here. Yeah, large, dry run runs right through Kitty Corner, kind of like this. And yeah, there's a reason why this property has not been developed in the last 100 years or so, or 50 years, let's say. It has some steeper slopes, and that's why the lots are not normal. They're not city lots. You can see, not normal city lots. They're, when you set them up against the ones on Dexter Street here, or even newer lots down in Great Rivers, they're 2, 3, 4, 10 times larger. They're just much bigger, and that's because of the topography. So, but it will work. The road will be it'll have a little steep stretch dropping down and then level off down by the cul-de-sac. And for the most part, the lots will have a fairly level building site in the front of them. Some of them drop off towards the rear, like these out here. Lot 1, larger lot for a reason, and that is it gives the option to build near the road, or on your packet you see that there's a driveway shown going up the hill to a build site more in this area.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be there, but we're just trying to illustrate that there's an option for some of the 2 larger lots, especially 1 and 9. 9 could have a longer driveway to a build site down in here. So that's the uniqueness of the property. It's pretty much entirely wooded. There's kind of a natural, I don't want to say depression, but a kind of a curve in the contours for a stormwater pond in this area. And stormwater would be routed down through a channel, likely into the pond, and then right next to the channel would probably be the path. But we'd have to work out all those details with the engineering design, of course. But the other unique part is a very large parkland donation.
That's the 27 acres on the south side there.
I think it's a little
25,
under 25.
Yeah, it's 25.
26, okay.
And this is concept, so right, we're just trying to get the approximate feel here. It's gonna change a little bit once we get into design.
I like the size of the lots.
So do I.
I like having these bigger lots. I think it's nice. I think
That's
people,
really good.
I think people will like
Deer
that.
hunting country you're heading out on, don't you?
Well, that's why they're larger lots. I didn't know Dave Hovel wasn't gonna be, I didn't realize he wasn't on plan commission anymore. I was gonna ask the hunter safety instructor
Yeah,
if
that's really.
bow hunting was allowed in the city limits or not.
Yeah, with permission, technically.
So hopefully that answers the topography question.
Pretty country.
I think it's nice. That looks really nice.
So what's the next step on this? This is just approval of the concept plan at our level?
So yeah, we look for your recommendation of approval or denial to council, and then we take that to council for the next step, and then we would be, if everything is approved on the concept plan, we'd be working with Louis and Doug on developing a preliminary plat, and then finalizing the developer's agreement for the.
I would make a motion to approve it to the next step.
Second?
All right, got a motion and a second to approve this concept plan. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Very pretty.
Good luck, guys.
All right. Other business, we've got, next scheduled plan commission meeting, Monday, October 7th. Is there any other?
Anything on the agenda for that yet? That you know of?
The next plan commission?
Yes.
Yes, there's a development, in North Acres that has submitted a site plan, the Wisconsin Credit Union.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you've seen, they have a kind
Yeah.
of a giant sign out there already advertising it, but they submitted their site plan,
So
a
we
week
definitely will
ago.
be having a meeting.
yeah.
Okay, perfect.
6 o'clock?
Yes.
Anything else, Matt?
No.
Motion to adjourn?
Second? Oh, God, we're gonna race again?
To adjourn, all those in favor say aye.
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 We're adjourned.
Because for the longest time, it was you that was the fastest.